Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elijah Norris Holiday. I'm a resident of St. Paul, Minnesota. I am a senior student right now, or a graduate student right now in my final year studying Master's in Public Administration. I'm the CEO and founder of Project Restore Minnesota. We're a community-based organization, and we're focused on the empowerment and uplifting of the ADOS community. Thank you all.
Awesome. Devontae,
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Devontae Springer. I'm currently serving as a California Justice Leader with Impact Justice and AmeriCorps, as well as serving as a mentor facilitator with My Brother's Keeper here in Sacramento, where I now live. I'm really excited about being on this call. Know we about to get a lot of good information, and looking forward to also participating with the participants. And so I encourage you guys to also, you're going to hear from us, but we also want to hear from you. So I'm glad to be here.
thank you, Devontae, for sharing. Ezekiel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ezekiel Nishiyama. I'm a youth advocate with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, working to end mass incarceration and just making the community safe, healthy, and whole. And I'm happy to be here with all you all and really want to hear you guys' feedback, but also want to talk about my experience and my involvement in the works. Thank you all.
And what city are you currently residing right now in, Ezekiel?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Awesome. So again, I'll be your moderator today. My name is Miguel Garcia, and we'll be having a very deep conversation on youth participation in local movements regarding Black lives and a new justice system and policy opportunities. I first want to start this question off with, the recent past months, there's been so much eyes on police, and especially with the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many other more Black lives. This first question, I want to go ahead and direct it to you, Elijah. What impact did the murder of George Floyd have on you as a directly impacted person, or other personal experiences? What has driven you?
Thank you for that question, Miguel. Before I answer it, though, I'm going to set the stage a little bit. So it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, the day after Mr. Floyd was murdered. And I was scrolling through Facebook like most of us do when we first wake up. And I saw a video of a man with a knee on his neck from a police officer. And he was crying out for help. And he was crying out for his mother. And I lost my mother 2 years ago. And I did not know this until I did an interview with Care 11 News. And I found out that, George Floyd also lost his mother. So when this man is crying out for his mom, I'm thinking that she's there with him, or she's around the corner, or, she's just a phone call away. I had no, it was not known to me that his mother had passed. And watching that video, I saw him die on that live feed. And I hopped up out of bed and I called two of my friends and I said, hey, we're going to go over to the 3rd precinct and we're going to have a protest. Call everyone, send out text messages. We're going to go get gloves. We're going to go get face masks. We're going to go to hand sanitizer for everyone so they can't say they were not being safe, but we're going to protest at the precinct. So we arrived there about 9 a.m. It was a small group of people, about 20 of us. My friend Cherokee and Essence was there with me. And we stayed there for about a couple of hours. And then, someone texted me and said, hey, we're going to be gathering over at 38th in Chicago. We went to 38th in Chicago and it was a massive crowd of people there. And people were frustrated. People were angry. People were mad. People were crying. And we joined the crowd. We participated in some of the speaking engagements that were going on throughout the block. And people started to then march over to the 3rd precinct where we just left. A few hours later, things got a little chaotic. The police arrived and they started shooting tear gas. People were throwing things back at them. And then eventually throughout the night, there would be a series of fires, both in St. Paul and in Minneapolis. And for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, our city was going through what people are calling a civil unrest. So it was a direct impact on me. It was a direct impact on my community. I knew some of those businesses that were burned down. I knew some of the people that are out there rioting and looting. And I made a video. It actually went viral. It was viewed over 250,000 times. And I was telling people to not come to the community to burn it down, that there is more peaceful ways that we can express our grievances against our government, that we can go about this in a logical way. But I think when people get so sick and tired of the system failing us, they result to violence. And I quit my job that day. I quit my job that day of that first protest. And I said, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my youth so far to doing impactful work. And then I started Project Restore Minnesota, was formed on June of 2016, or June 16th of 2020. So this year, we're a new company. And so far, we've been doing some very impactful work that I'm looking forward to talking with you all about later.
Thank you, Elijah, for sharing your drive and your passion to reform and your fight for Black lives. Devontae, I want to ask that similar question. I know that in Sacramento, we've had our own George Floyd and Stephon Clark, and some of the impact that Sacramento PD has on the community of color. What drives you? And I know that incident with Stephon Clark years ago still resonates today due to the Black lives being impacted. So can you share a little bit of your perspective?
Yeah, of course. So me personally, I've been I experienced police brutality since like the age of 15. I'm 24 now. So it definitely, what I'm saying, when I see videos and situations like the George Floyd, it definitely hit home with me because I feel like, man, that could have been me. When I think about all the situations like that I've been in with police and stuff, I think about, man, that could have easily been me or, my cousin or something. So uh it it definitely creates some type of like awareness in me where like when you talk about like my drive, it makes me feel like, okay, what type of message is this sending out? So when I see, Black men getting killed uh, by the police, the people that's supposed to, serve and protect, and then I think about the message that it's sending, like the message to, my younger cousins and my younger siblings and the other young Black men that's growing up. I always try to think about it from that perspective, like if I'm a kid or something, and I see this on my cell phone, like what type of message, what am I thinking? Am I scared of the police? Like when so all those different type of emotions is going on. But when when I first heard about the George Floyd situation, it was to be completely honest with everybody, it was kind of just like another, like I'm so tired of seeing these videos. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of just like another one of those videos that is going viral and people was talking about. So to me, it was like, oh my God, another one. But for some reason, the George Floyd was different because it was felt by everybody, like across the world. And so um I go back to that part where I think about, okay, what type of message is this leaving on the younger generation that I'm trying to influence? You know what I'm saying? So that was the first time that I participated in a protest. One of my homies called me, and they said they was going to go, to protest. And so I'm gonna be honest, you know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't really, what I'm saying, like I advocate, but I honestly feel like, protesting is a strategy, but it's not a solution. And I always think about like how do we stop this problem? How we stop this from happening? And so after talking to him, I end up going, and I felt like I had, like it was an obligation that I had to go. You know what I'm saying? Like just based on what I stand for and what I'm trying to what I'm trying to accomplish, I feel like I had to go. I had to feel the energy, and I had to, just let it be known, like, like this. I'm out here for the cause. I want this to stop happening in our community. But honestly, the first instant when I really started like paying attention to this is back when Trayvon Martin had got killed. And the reason why I say Trayvon Martin, because he was killed the day of my birthday. And I didn't know that until I actually started, studying the case. And then I learned about the stand your ground law that eventually freed his killer and stuff like that. So that's when my awareness really started awakening to, like, because Trayvon, he was still a kid, and so that, I think that's when my drive really started, advocating for, in police brutality. But I always been an advocate of solutions. So I just want to encourage, what I'm saying, the George Floyd, yeah, it was unfortunate, but I also want to encourage, what can we do to, what I'm saying, to prevent these things from happening. So yeah, man, that's pretty much my piece on that, what I'm saying.
Thank you for sharing. We're gonna get to Ezekiel, and then I'll get to the panelist questions at the end of ours. So bear with us. Ezekiel, want to go ahead and pass that same question along to you? Is that, in Los Angeles, one of the largest counties to really just exacerbate racial and ethnic disparities in California. You've seen the protest. You've seen how did that make you feel?
Thank you, Miguel. So here in Los Angeles, I was already a part of a large advocating, doing a lot of work around juvenile justice. When the George Floyd murder happened, it just showed that the reality of what we are dealing with in our communities and what we're faced with. And I felt when it happened, I felt like I was feeling a lot. I was feeling down. I was feeling kind of really sad, really like, is our work working? Are we going hard enough? And it pushed me, like Elijah, like I woke up and wanted to go harder, wanted to really feel like we need to go harder, need to go more against like the police, focus on police brutality, focus on what we need in our communities, and very much like Devontae, coming with a solution. As for myself, I couldn't go out to protest due to me being on probation. So I was coming up with, what can I do from home? What could I do from my house? What could I do through the pandemic? And that's when just kept the work going and kept meeting and coming up with questions and meeting in small groups and coming up with the answers for these questions. And around LA, we came up with the Youth Justice Work Group, defunding the police, diverting funds, and really focusing on that, really focusing on taking money away from the police and how we could take that money and put it back into our communities and invest in our youth that are growing up in LA, that are growing up in our communities, that are becoming our future, and how we could educate them. That's how I felt like a solution could be, how we could build our centers, how we could build a better community together where we won't have to worry about calling the police, having police be the people to correct our youth. And as we've seen over the past years, we've seen how police and probation never really guided our youth the right way. They always came with punishment. You're a bad kid, you're a menace to society, terms like that on our youth that are 13, 12, 14 years old. So that had a real impact on our communities, telling our youth that as a young kid, they're not gonna amount to nothing. So solutions like how we could educate, how we could support, how we could guard our youth the right way, how we could get them ready to be successful in the community, have a career, have a benefiting life, and just really want to focus on that rather than having a system based on punishment that will send our youth to incarceration for years that with very little education. So just wanted to focus on that and pass it back to Miguel.
Thank you all for your deep and insight and passion to this work. I know this year has been tough on many, and I could only imagine that, you know, the drive that we need to get through these the remainder of this year and what brings us up for next year. I want to go ahead and mention that I am creating a queue, but I just want to get through the questions that we have listed for our panelists first, and then I'll go ahead and start with our queue. We have Shally, Dimitri, and Elizabeth, the first three. We'll save the last 15 minutes for the questions, but I want to definitely hear some of the work that y'all have been doing in the community. And I guess we'll start with you, Ezekiel. Is what work have you been doing in the community? You mentioned the layup work, the LA Youth Uprising work. Can you mention a little bit about some of the specifics of that work?
So the specific is what we do at LA Youth Uprising is defund the police, work on diverting funds from the police to the community. Police get about, I'm not gonna go into details about how much money they get, but they get an awful lot of funds that we feel like as a community could be given to more invested in our youth and invested into what we can provide for the youth that isn't ran by probation or through law enforcement. And we've been meeting throughout, now virtually. We started before the pandemic, but through the pandemic, we moved virtually and just been meeting in a lot of Zoom meetings every week, talking about how we could build a better system, and also been involved in a youth justice work group, which is building a whole new system that isn't based on punishment, that won't be ran by law enforcement, and that's in the works. And just been focusing on how we can make our community a better place.
Awesome. Elijah, can you mention a little bit about, again, you are the CEO of an organization. Can you mention a little bit of the work that you do with your organization?
Yeah, so through Project Restore Minnesota LLC, we currently do professional development and personal development, I should say, for 25 young people throughout Ramsey County. And then we also are doing the same thing over in Hennepin County for 25 young people. And I was actually given the opportunity to extend our services to more people throughout Ramsey County. So with the professional development piece, we teach them how to make a resume, cover letters, how to conduct an interview through Zoom. We connect them with scholarships, college entry. So we've been able to pay off, at least 5 of our participants' remaining balances that they owed their institutions to get them back into college. We've also been able to help with rent, energy bills, Wi-Fi bills. We've been able to do car repairs for a lot of our young people in the community that don't have transportation if they do have a job to get there. And we're also helping some of our participants get bank accounts and get IDs. A lot of them don't have identification or bank accounts. So that's some direct work we're doing. You can toss it on the umbrella of wraparound support, and then also teach them about who they are as Black males and Black women, ADOS men and ADOS women in society that is primarily white dominated, especially in Minnesota. I think ADOS people here, we probably make up about 4%, 3% of the population here. And minorities in general, people of color in general, I think are less than about 10% of the population here in Minnesota. So we have a very different terrain that we have to navigate through than a lot of other people. I mean, LA, I'm sure there's a lot more diversity there. East Coast, a lot more diversity there. But here in Minnesota, we are truly a minority in the realest definition. And some other things that I've been working on is just where I've been working on personally is having conversations with local government officials, city council members, school board members, county commissioners about how they can provide direct support to our young people and continue to fund these types of programs past COVID-19. And I think once George Floyd was murdered, there was this awakening and our government to do something about the disparities that exist in our communities. And we've seen that time and time again. And I'm not naive to that, right? Someone dies in the community, goes through what I call as an uprising. And they're like, okay, let's throw money at the problem. And a year, 2 years go by, there's no more money to fund these programs, and we are right back in the same position that we're in. So I'm really trying to hold them accountable to being impactful and intentional when they're providing these resources. And hopefully we can build some long-standing support systems in our community. And the other part of it is building infrastructure. We have a lot of Black businesses here in Minnesota, but there's no infrastructure. There's no systems in place to give them working capital. So I'm having conversations with our government to get them working capital to free up some funds so they can get their business off the ground and they can become more sustainable. And I also have a podcast called the ADOS, the ADOS podcast. We stream on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and we're also on Spotify. And I like to use that platform to highlight, people in the community that are doing very impactful work around criminal justice reform, entrepreneurship, community development, economic development, and all of those things. So it's just really a platform for ADOS people to come together and to talk about some of the issues that we're having and some of the solutions that we have. And hopefully, our government is tuning in and listening to that podcast. Some of them actually are. So that's kind of what I've been working on.
Thank you, Elijah. Really appreciate the work that you're doing in Minnesota, and I commend you on that the long fight and seeing that there is a need for long-term commitment rather than short-term, and you're seeing that through by having these conversations with these elected officials, making sure that there's money at the end of whatever they say it's going to need. But thank you for sharing that. I want to go ahead and then transition over that question to Devontae. May you share a little bit of the work that you do in your community. I know you mentioned mentorship. I've been firsthand witness of your mentorship, which has been incredible. May you share that?
Yeah, so when I first started, like getting into this work, after I kind of put my childish ways behind me, like I went through the justice system as a kid, and even as an adult, went through the adult punishment system. And I just remember, like during my transition, like one of my main goals at that time was to, and still to this day, it was to either, tear down the justice system or like fix it. Because I remember just being a young dude and just going through the system. Like when you don't really have guidance or, parents or something that's really walking you. And another thing, when you don't have money, you know what I'm saying? Not having money to bail out or not having money to get you a good lawyer to advocate for the best, because we all make mistakes, you know what I'm saying? So I just remember going through that whole system and just like a pawn just being moved, like, and I didn't have no control over it. So that was always my goal, you know what I'm saying, was to do work within the justice system. And then I started realizing that the justice system is just one system that's a part of a whole bigger system that's, that's set up to like negatively impact Black and brown people. So then I started thinking, okay, I went back to the solutions, like how could I go against not just this one system, but this overarching system, you know what I'm saying? So through the anti-recidivism coalition in Sacramento, we started doing the Real Talk weekly groups. And that's just a space where, youth, any youth under the age of 30 can come. It's virtual, you know what I'm saying? We hold those spaces to advocate about issues that's in the community. We use it as just a platform to increase awareness and just, get off some of our let off some stuff that's been concerning us. So we started doing that. And then with that, shortly after, the George Floyd situation happened, I also lost a cousin to gang violence. So it kind of even pushed me a little harder, like, man, like I gotta do more, you know what I'm saying? Like first the George Floyd thing and then that, and then now this. And so now I have to kind of like also not forget about my community. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to start right here in the community where it's actually going down at. So I launched my website, and basically my goal was from launching a website is to try to get more, try to build a team of mentors, of credible messengers, of vetted community members that's kind of been through something, and can actually mentor people that look like them, and you know what I'm saying, and just based on that, they're from the community. Hopefully, the youth will be more, successful to listen to them, because they seen that they went through something, and that they from where they from, and now they're kind of changing their life. So that was kind of my goal from that, is to kind of build like a team of mentors, and also to kind of push my advocacy around too. You know what I'm saying? Like uh I I try to be, you know what I'm saying, like I try to just be the big brother, you know what I'm saying, that I didn't have, because I really feel um like in the communities is where it counts most. And so that's where I started, you know what I'm saying? Like that's where I started. So the started with the website, and then we were doing the weekly groups, and then so my goal is to launch a nonprofit called Community House Activism, where we use storytelling and activism to to help influence these changes, and also on the policy side too, advocate for these policy changes, you know what I'm saying. And so kind of just a brief overview. It was like the members will go through like a storytelling training and a advocacy training, and then they will use, they will have like professional videos made and stuff like that. And I want this to be like directly in the community. So that's like some things that I've been working on since the George Floyd, and also since the death of my cousin. It kind of just pushed me a little harder, you know what I'm saying, and kind of trying to challenge the system directly, and stop pinpointing all these little things, like, and not acting like they're all a part of this one bigger picture, you know what I'm saying. So try to just advocate for those things as a whole, really.
Awesome, awesome. And I think we're gonna have one more question before we get to the audience. I see that we have a lot of questions with that, but there's a lot of, at stake in this time in history, and some people may feel that the future is very dim, it's not that bright. But I think for let's leave up that to the younger generation to decide. And we have three bright young men that have very aspirational thoughts. Is what can you hope for the future? What changes would you like to see in the youth justice system or in the community? And I want to start with you, Devontae. Again, sometimes it may be difficult to imagine something, but without no imagination, nothing could ever be possible. So, what's your envision for the future, Devontae?
Yeah, so I believe that I would like to, my vision for the future, I would just like to see us address some of the past issues that kind of got us to where we are right now. Um, Even when it comes to youth, you know what I'm saying? Like sending youth to prison, charging them as adults, sending them into adult prisons, and investing money into these things that's, probation and all these things, and treating it like as a problem, and not like as a, like, kind of address it from like a mental health point of view. So I would like to see that change. Just not treating it more like as profit, not treating punishment as profit, but treating it as like a mental health issue. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so like addressing some of those things, and then once we address them, kind of sitting at the table together. Because at the end of the day, I'm saying, I'm an advocate for all these things, but it's basically just, you know what I'm saying, I believe in humanity at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? I believe that if you're human, you know what I'm saying, and you got a heart, at the end of the day, you can't control the way you was, you know what I'm saying, the way you was brought up. So I believe that if coming together at the table and sitting at the table together and discussing ways to improve this system, I think is one key to actually pushing forward and moving forward and making progress. So yeah, that'll probably be my biggest tool is addressing the past issues that got us here. And then once you're able to talk about those issues and, you know, acknowledge it and, you know, have accountability, and then, you know, together discuss how do you move forward and actually, you know, holding people accountable, I think is two big things that I would like to see in the future.
Awesome. Elijah, similar question. You mentioned the conversations you've had with city council members, the ones that you will look to have, elected leaders. What's your vision for the future, especially for the Twin Cities that you're coming from?
Yeah, so I'll start with this. The concept of defunding the police is not new. It's existed for a long time, actually. There's been a movement that were, you know, police abolitionists or people who want to defund the police all come out and straight and just say this. I don't believe that that's the solution. I do not favor defunding the police. I've been very vocal about that in my community, both in St. Paul and in Minneapolis. I think that's the reaction out of emotion that, you know, we're just going to take away the funds, we're going to decrease the amount of police in the community. It's the same system that they use with our education system. The education system fails, so they continuously take dollars away from it instead of saying, okay, either let's put more money into the system and figure out strategic ways to make it better, to revamp it, to bring people of color into it who are from the community, or let's reappropriate the funds. I would favor the latter of those two, which is reappropriating the funds and providing more resources to mental health folks to come in and provide additional assistance to our police officers who are responding to some of these calls that are nonviolent, right? Someone calls the police and say, my son is having a mental health issue, and they arrive and they shoot the guy. Well, if they're accompanied by a trained professional who knows, you know, how to de-escalate situations involving mental health, then it wouldn't even get to that point. But there's no funding for those types of things. I also want to see our police departments become more innovative in their technology. Instead of always arriving to scenes with lethal weapons, how about we put money towards, you know, finding more innovative weapons, right? That don't use lethal force. So how about we start utilizing more rubber bullets? How about we use bullets that can just stun people and, you know, temporarily incapacitate them, but it doesn't kill them, right? Non-lethal measures. Right now, the tasers are not effective. Okay, well, let's figure out how we can put more money towards that technology to make it more effective. So when we tase a person, they're not fighting against the taser and they're not ripping it off, endangering the lives of police officers. But we cannot defund the police, especially in places like North Minneapolis. I don't think that is the solution. So I'll be straightforward with that. The other thing that I would like to see is better living conditions for our young people, especially the young people who are in the criminal justice system and juvenile detention centers. They're living under some terrible conditions. They're treated like animals there. And for a young person who's introduced to the criminal justice system at an early age, if they're treated like an animal when they're in there, they're going to get back out into society and they're going to think that they're animals and they're going to continue to behave that way. We don't have to restore humanity in these people that come into our criminal justice system. A lot of them, you know, come from, you know, backgrounds or families who are still dealing with the crack epidemic that went on in the community, right? Parents who are alcoholics or parents that are just working two jobs and can't be there to support their kids in a way that they would like. So how can our you know, community leaders, how can our elected officials provide more support to our families who are struggling so that they can provide better support for their children? And then how can we be there building that infrastructure? How can we build that infrastructure to support them as well when they fall? The other thing is access to wealth building opportunities, not just jobs, but means to actually accumulate wealth. The third thing is life insurance policies. I'm currently, you know, working with some of my colleagues right now to build up a policy that if you live within these types of zip codes, and we know that it has high gun violence and all these other things, disparities, then you're eligible for these life insurance policies that the government will subsidize for you. So you're not responsible for paying the $40 a month. You maybe only have to contribute $15 and the government will contribute the rest, but you have a life insurance policy. So in the unfortunate situation of one of our young people die, their family at least have a means to bury them, if not a means to start generating some more wealth so they can teach their other kids what not to do, or they can provide more support for them. White families do it all the time. I have plenty of buddies who have life insurance policies and have had them forever. And those life insurance policies starts to accumulate money over time. It's just like in the savings account, but a higher interest rate. I have one. It's called a cash benefit life insurance policy. Those types of things we can do as a community and educate our community members on. And the fourth thing is, better paying jobs. $15 an hour is good, but I would rather see that be 18, 19, $20 an hour with more opportunities to get promoted. If you don't want to go to college, fine. You can go to this trade school, learn how to become a carpenter or engineer or plumber, and you can make really good money and have room to open up your own business eventually. So now you can start generating wealth. So those are some things that I envision for our future. And I think those things are all feasible, but everyone needs to come together and think that same way. And I call that progressive.
Thank you for sharing that, Elijah. I really appreciate your perspective and insight. Definitely various ways of addressing this very complex issue, and there's going to be various ways and needs to address the complex issue of police reform and accountability. Ezekiel, I want to go ahead and leave this last question with you before we get to the audience. What's your hope for the future? I know LA County is just really is looking to release the report, which highlights that youth are no longer going to be under the supervision of probation, but under a new agency within health and human services. And so can you speak a little bit more about like what you envision?
I'm envisioning a better LA, a better future for LA, for the youth in LA. Just also want to make it a clear blueprint for the rest of California and the rest of everywhere. But just want to focus on having support systems for people coming home from the system after years of trauma, after being in a dark place. Just want to support them in their transition and their reentry into our communities. I know when I came home that I needed a support system. I needed people I could go to when I'm down, when I'm in a dark place. I needed someone I could talk to, and ARC gave that to me, being that I want that more for our people who are coming home from the system, people that help them get a job when they come home, employment, help them out with college, help them enroll in college, help them also get support for college funding. Just that, supporting our community, making our community a better place as a whole, because our people who are locked up is part of our community, and we want to make them the best version of themselves when they're back into our communities, and support them when they're here in their reentry, and just help them overcome their battles.
Awesome. Thank you. And so now to our audience, I know it looks like we've had a lot of audience comments. Just to kind of generalize some of the other questions is, are the panelists okay with dropping their contact information in the chat box so that some of the panelists may be able to contact you? If so, please do so. Some of the panelists are requesting so. And so I kind of want to go ahead and start off with the first question that we have. This is from Shelly. She's asking Elijah, you said something that we have been trying to figure out. You said some are calling civil unrest. Do we have a name for this point in our nation's history that names this churning for all of us? As for Devontae and Elijah, you answered this one. That first question. As for Devontae, just said George Floyd is different. What do we call this period in American history? I agree, it does feel different this time. Civil unrest just does not seem to do the issue justice to me. I could be wrong, or words matter. It seems they matter here. And so Elijah, and then we'll go to Devontae. Want to go ahead and share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people are calling it civil unrest. I actually wrote a report and I was told to call it civil unrest. That was the title of it, community input based on the civil unrest of the George Floyd murder. And I chose to go with that title as well. But I think that it's called uprising or community uprising. So that's a term that I would go with. And I think oftentimes, certain groups of people, more often than not, as the majority, they get to control the narrative and what things should be called and what goes into the history books. I think, Black folks right now, we're coming to the point where we want to control our own narratives. So, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But I think it's community uprising, civil uprising.
Thank you. Devontae.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think George Floyd is different either. Um, I mean, all the videos that I see where a cop is killing an innocent Black man, it all looks the same to me. So, maybe they're different ages or something, but I feel like it's the same pattern that's being repeated. Um, so it's like, I mean, you should expect an uprising. You know what I'm saying? You should you should expect, people to not feel, cool about that. Um, but like another thing that I did leave out too is um, one of my biggest focus is focusing on like the communities itself, like so like for instance, like out here in Sacramento, like a community like Del Paso Heights or Meadowview or something like that. I tend to like try to focus on those like communities and actually like the people in them. So like if I went to school with you, or some of my family members, but you're in the community and you're not really aware to what like as a Black brown people what we're up against, then my biggest thing is to try to wake you up to that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm starting, even working with kids nowadays, I'm starting to see that a lot of people are just like too busy on the phones and they're so interested about what's happening on here that they're kind of not, present to what's really going on. And it's like the trends and stuff like that. It's easy for people to fall in the loop. So I really try to focus on like people in my community that I see gang banging, or like I noticed like the Sacramento, we're starting to get heavy like on the rap scene, and we're starting to have like a lot of local rappers that's starting to get a lot of light shined on our city. So I even started making music, but I changed my lyrics. You know what I'm saying? So like I try to make, rapping cool, but not rapping about the typical stuff that you know what I'm saying, that you hear on the radio that's not doing our community no good. You feel me? And so I try to focus on that, and that's kind of my goal to child community house activism, is to make it like cool to be to want better for your people, to want better for your community, like make that cool and make it a priority. So if you want to learn more about that, you can visit my website at DevontaeSpringer.com.
Thank you for sharing. So there is a quote by Dimitri. He said, he or she or they say, yeah, he was a first to me. I was in high school at the time, so it hit home. Someone was my age was murdered doing things I did, which was going to the gas station for snacks. And I think the Demetria is referring to the Trayvon example, that Trayvon Martin example you gave, Devontae. And yeah, it hit home for a lot of us, going, to get some snacks and wearing a hoodie. That's what a lot of us do in neighborhoods. I want to go to Elizabeth Knight's question. He's like, and this could any of the panelists please whoever wants to answer, do you think there will be a day when people can stop having the conversation with their children about what to do when the cops stop you? And what do you think about this police accountability law? I'm not sure what in particular police accountability law there is that Elizabeth is mentioning, but I guess, do you ever think that this conversation about like don't do this or don't do that when the cops, and this is posed to any of our panelists, please whoever of y'all would like to speak on this?
Yeah, I can start. Well, from a personal standpoint, I don't think it's gonna change because I remember being young, being a kid, and my family telling me, "Hey, don't do this to the cops," or "Don't trust the police," or "Don't talk to the police," or you know what I'm saying. So I think for Black and Brown communities, I think that's kind of a thing that we're some, not all people, but a lot of us was. I know a lot of my family, we was kind of taught that like growing up, not like to hate the police, but like kind of just like a don't trust them type thing. So I feel like in our cultures, that's kind of like a it's kind of like a necessity. I mean, but you can't blame them. Like, look, you know what I'm saying? Like, look at what's being televised. So, I mean, I don't think that conversation will stop until you know innocent Black men, stop being not only killed, but just on a regular day. You know what I'm saying? Like you could be harassed, you could be, especially looking like me, Black, tattoos, dreads, or Latino driving around, you could be harassed on any, like just a regular day, going to the store, get some snacks. You know what I'm saying? Like you could be in the wrong part of your city and just get harassed for being in the suburbs. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it'll end until, what I'm saying, what we've been seeing ends, what I'm saying? So
Yeah, can I address that one too? I agree with Devontae, but I try to have a little bit more of an optimistic outlook on that situation. I'm hopeful that we, as a community, and work with our elected officials to create pathways for young people who look like me to become police officers who are interested in joining the academies and coming back and serving their communities in an impactful and intentional way. And then I think that we will, not have so many of those unfortunate issues occur in our community. But also, I had to talk with my parents, and my father had to talk with me. It's like he had to talk with me about when I'm in the classroom, how should I conduct myself, right? Not to disrespect my teacher, not to talk back, not to throw things in class, to be attentive, to do all these things. But I think the unfortunate part about being Black in America is even when you do all those right things, you still could die at the hands of the police. I mean, look at my brother, Philando Castillo. Abiding by the law, he even told him, hey, I got a licensed firearm with me. The officer immediately switched to, don't touch your firearm. He's like, well, I'm just telling you that I have a licensed firearm. And then he was killed. So there's a person who wasn't unruly, wasn't trying to cause any issues with the police officer. He was letting him know that he had a licensed firearm with him, and it still resulted in his death. Brother George Floyd was telling him, look, I'm claustrophobic. I don't want to be inside of this police vehicle. I'll talk to you, but let me sit down on the curb. But no, they persisted to try to put him inside the SWAT car. And of course, he's resisting because that's an uncomfortable situation for him. He's having a panic attack at that point, and he was murdered. So, the unfortunate part is even when we do all the right things and we go through the process of being respectful with the police officers, we still could be killed.
Thank you. Ezekiel, do you have any thoughts before we go on to the next question? Do you think, having this conversation with the next generation or younger people will ever change? And what does a police accountability law look like?
Yeah, I feel like what Devontae and both Elijah both expressed, but I feel like it'll take all of us. It'll take all of us as a whole. If we want it to change, it has to be a whole community effort, and we all gotta put in the right tools for it to succeed.
Thank you. So our next question is from Nick Costalas. He's curious about your statement, Ezekiel, about how you could not join a protest because you were on probation. Was it an actual condition, or is it just something that the probation officer told you?
It's just as far as I know, if I'm out there and I get pulled over by the police and come into contact with the police, and it just comes the question, are you on probation? And then the next question comes, what am I on probation for? And as soon as I tell them that, then I'm instantly being harassed already, because as soon as I tell them what I've been arrested for, that's what I'm being treated as now. So just that fear kept me from going out.
So unintended consequences that may occur when, let's say, you're at a, at a rally. It could be a Lakers celebration. As we know it, and there's someone that's not affiliated with you, and they throw a bottle or a water bottle at cops, and they shoot bean bags at you, and I guess one hits you, but you weren't the one that it leads to unintended consequences. And then if you're questioned and you're on probation, and depending on the harm you committed, it could ultimately lead you back to a place that you did not want to go to, correct?
Yes.
And I think we also see that with folks on parole and other types of supervision, is that there may be unintended consequences when simply wanting to, express one of your rights. Being just part of a mask is maybe leading to inciting a riot charge. So definitely would like to hear more about how we could do that. So next question is from, sorry, going through the Luis, is how can I get my agencies to step up, collaborate, and this could be to all any of the panelists. How can I get my agency to step up by collaborating with minority-run community-based programs to help minority youths currently on juvenile probation? Our minority youths have zero access to minority counsel and minority mentors. I've been working with great minority-run mentorship agencies known as AEYL, with proven track record of keeping youths from falling deeper into the criminal justice system. Yet my agency has yet to bring them on board. Why is this? Do any of you have thoughts like why there may be a reluctancy of agencies that have law enforcement histories to want to incorporate community-based organizations? Any thoughts of like why is that so? As many of us may have experiences, like a lot of community-based organizations are ran by sometimes, especially those that are in communities of color, by people of color. So why isn't that a lot of these agencies are not partnering up at a higher rate than that we would like for them? Any thoughts? Elijah, it seems you want to answer, or no?
I'll let Devontae go first.
Okay.
It's open, right, to all the panelists? Okay, so yeah, I'll just start briefly by saying, so like I know, like you guys see the movies of like when like there's a person that's trying to like do something with an organization or something, and they like join it, but they're like undercover or something like that. So I kind of think of it like that way when I say like I focus on the communities. Like I actually go there, like I go to these places, I kick it with the people, I'm talking to their kids, I go to their house, kick it at their house. I say that because I feel like I could do a lot. I could have a bigger impact if I'm actually a part of that system. Like I can work within that system as long as I keep my same goal and my same vision in mind. So if I know that if I know my goal in mind is to, let's just say, fix the justice system, the youth justice system or something, it doesn't really matter if I'm in the hood or if I'm working with these people, it's because I'm trying to make an impact within, you know what I'm saying? Or even if I have that same goal and I'm working with a big corporation or a big company that that doesn't necessarily like maybe not all the way align with my goals and vision, but as long as I know where I'm trying to go, and if I know my vision, I can still operate within that company or organization to help, to help further my goals. So I kind of try to think of it like that, as if you have the same end goal in mind, you guys may have different ways to get in there, but as long as you keep the same goal in mind, you can have that impact, you know what I'm saying, within any system.
Elijah,
Yeah, I'll just add a few sentences, and I'll definitely try to keep it short. I think there may be reluctant to bring in community members and community organizations because it forces them then to be held accountable, because the community organizations and community members will be stakeholders in their decision-making process. So, I mean, in thinking, I think that might be a reason why they may be reluctant to do so, because it builds in that accountability, which is what I would like to see. I would like to see a lot of more community-based organizations and community members being stakeholders when these decisions are being made. I think that's how we solve the issue of accountability across the board.
Thank you. And I guess we'll just have room for one more question. And I apologize to the audience if we weren't able to get to your questions. But the next question is from Shannon. Her question is, how do we get over, what are your, some thoughts on addressing this equation of fear equals ego equals violence on all sides, so that we can produce a more progressive awareness among groups? So how do we get rid of this this equation of fear equaling ego and equal violence, so that we may bring more awareness and progression among groups in the criminal justice movement?
Again, I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I like to be as optimistic as possible, but with that particular question or that particular equation, you can't solve that. And I've had this conversation with many of my undergraduate professors, some of whom studied human nature, politics, and violence, and how they all interact with each other for a number of years, and taught at Stanford and Yale and all those other Ivy League schools. And we both came to the same conclusion that, violence is a part of human nature. And actually, we're fighting against our inclinations to be violent every single day. We're fighting against it. It is a part of our makeup as humans. So we just need to get to the point where we can try to introduce more love, more community building, more courageous conversations, and just try to build, like I said, infrastructure to support one another. But as far as that equation, unless you change the human makeup and how we operate, where violence is always going to be there. There's been wars that are still going on, that started 300-400 years ago in some countries, and they're still taking place right now to this day. So I think violence is a part of our human nature.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I could just, my final thoughts probably will be, I always keep it in mind that any type of change that I want to see, I know that the starting point is going to be with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the best place where I can start, is within myself. And then I can sprinkle that into the people that, I serve, or that I'm working with, or my family. So that's one thing that I always keep in mind with that. So yeah, ego and violence. And I do agree with what Elijah just said. I think that was all great points. So I'm gonna just kind of add to his answer with just saying that be the change that you want to see.
Thank you. Again, I apologize to the audience that we weren't able to get through the list of the questions. I know that this was a very deep conversation. We witnessed the authenticity, the personalization, the professionalism that goes on or is not heard as much within these conversations, especially with young adults being impacted. So I want to thank our panelists, Elijah, Devontae, Ezekiel, for taking the time to really express yourselves and insightful to this really difficult, challenging topic conversation. But without it, we're not able to move on. So I want to go ahead and pass it on to Shavante to take us away.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for moderating this amazing conversation. It was so impactful, insightful, as we can see with all the questions that we got in the chat. People really loved hearing all of your perspectives. This recording will be posted on JDAIconnect later today. I'll include information from the panelists. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Devontae and Ezekiel, for your time. We really appreciate it. And if you want to get more information, please contact all the panelists. They put their information in the chat, and we will included in the description of the webinar recording. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.